Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our door open. We're your hosts, Matt, Shelby, and Taylor, and we bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and maybe even throw in a plug for you to do business with us.
Hey, welcome back to Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers. We're excited to be with you today. Today's going to be a cool subject. We're back. It's going to be on networking and the power of networking. I'm going to give you a news flash, though. You're going to want to listen to the whole thing because I know myself, I always haven't been a great networker.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how that evolves and as a leader, how you identify areas you need to grow in. And networking is definitely one of those. So grab your favorite cup of coffee, join in with us as we get started today. We're going to talk about the why, the who, the where, and beyond just local businesses, who you should connect with, how to connect with them, and then how to use that to grow not only your personal business, but whatever business that you work in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hey, and a recap from last week, the good and the bad. That's talking of daily habits. That's talking of good and bad habits. And that's talking about breaking them before they break you.
Okay.
And you acknowledge whether there's something good that's pushing you forward or even sometimes is a bad habit that you don't think is affecting you. Mm-hmm. We really dove into that so you could see how it affects your daily life and how it makes you more successful. So dive back into that last week as well as the previous episodes that are available online. And also check us out at lewissuperstore.com.
Hey, our favorite part that we like to bring to you is relevant to what we're talking about, but what we currently do and what we offer is what did we drive to the podcast today? Mm-hmm. So today we're talking off-road, but we're talking huge value.
Oh.
So the king of off-road within the Ford community is the Bronco Raptor.
Ooh, that is such a good pick.
3-liter EcoBoost.
Yeah, okay.
Off-road suspension, 6 inches wider, factory 37-inch tires, some extra bracing within the chassis and the roll cage, upgraded Recaro seats, painted to match fenders, painted to match roof. It is the ultimate off-road machine. Fun fact for you,
Okay.
Ford just swept the entire podium at King of the Hammer.
That's a big one.
Which is one of the hardest off-road races
For sure.
out there. And so they were in 3 different classes and they swept the podium with the Ford Bronco. So they're full speed into it. So we're talking about a Bronco Raptor, 3-liter EcoBoost, all the horsepower, all the suspension, but at a pretty dang good value.
Hey, you know, one of the things I like about the Bronco Raptor, we all kind of grew up, and a lot of you listeners did as well, is adding aftermarket stuff, customizing vehicles. And you'd customize suspension or engines or transmissions or shocks or whatever it is. You take the Bronco Raptor, and they've made it all work together. You know, because we've all put a turbo on this or changed a rear end gear or a different K member.
Bigger tires.
Or different tires. And like you spend forever getting it to all jive. You know, so Ford has taken, and not only is it a big motor in it, they not only put the fantastic suspension, but King of the Hammers is a great example of that, of where they have live valve suspension that adjusts to the terrain.
So whether it's the rocks or it's the high-speed whoops,
it adjusts on the fly, where before you'd have to get out there if you're used to the old Ranchos and change the dials and this and that and figure it out. Just not only that, then they widen the suspension, and what comes with that too is you really need wider flares, where most of us widen the suspension or the offset on wheels and they're sticking out past the vehicle. Well, Ford incorporates all that to work together in millions of hours of testing, and you can drive it down the road with comfort, or you can go 100 plus in the desert in it, or be a King of the Hammers and climb over all the rocks. And I love that it's out of the box, ready to go.
Yeah, and it is legit, ready to go, and you're going to have to try pretty hard to break them.
No.
But this thing, the reason we brought it, because of all the fun things that we talked about, but we have it at $20,000.
That's just crazy.
That includes a Jeep Conquest, because they're going after that Jeep segment there, but you don't even have to trade it. But if you own a Jeep within your household, $20,000 off. And we got a good selection, but they are flying off the shelves. You can see that. All right, jumping into why networking is a game changer for small business owners.
Yep.
So we're talking about the proximity, the networking, and sometimes it's, man, you just get like so hyper-focused with you and the business and all the tasks at hand. You don't slow down to think about the networking.
You really don't. And I'll use myself as an example here. I mean, I can tell you, because I've now been back in the business, like full-time in the business for 23 years, 22 years, something like that, okay, of like real deal. Yeah. And I can tell you for 10 plus years of that, so over half of it, what I did is I came to work and I put my plow on the ground and you couldn't distract me. And I mean, I worked harder than anybody within our business. And there was success from that. There was. But I was losing the networking outside of the business. And that comes in two folds. That comes in networking of growing your business through retail sales, but it also comes through networking of connecting with others that you want on your team. We've always talked about that, whether it be a piece of land or an employee or this or that. Those best deals, the best connections, the best hires, they've come from networking, not from an ad out there, on Hireology or this or that, but from being around those people networking. So the word networking is really broad.
That's funny because I was going to say that's twofold. And
it really is.
That's so funny because it is understanding all the people that you say that then they may need. Like once you build that connection with those people.
Sure.
Then, and I was telling somebody about that, like if I can show people how we do business and how simple and easy and how fun and how transparent and easy it is that you can shoot a text. And I just got one this morning as I was getting ready for work. I got a text that, hey, I need another truck for my business. I need it just like this one, outfitted like this one. Let me know what you can find. And so then it's just a couple text messages. Hey, found it for you. Do you want this bed? Do you want this bed? Here's what the price point is. Finally, it's got your paperwork. And so then they show up and it's like 5 minutes, it's ready to go, and then we deliver it to them, right? So that's first phase of networking. Second phase of networking is if you only show up to work and put your plow in the ground, you accomplish a lot of good things, but you never see an outside perspective. And it's fun to get to learn other like-minded people, but with a complete different, they're on a different road. So they're seeing different houses. They're seeing different perspectives. So there's this guy at church that I'll always talk to. Is like, hey, what's going on? Another business owner.
Sure.
Same idea, same philosophy, but just going down a different path. And so we share back and forth of what this works or what that works. And it's a total different perspective of just by being in that right room, networking with the right people. The thing I've talked about, you can either learn it yourself through hard knocks or you can find someone else who's done it. And when you give, they'll give back to you, and you get to learn that stuff.
They really will. It's we're just coming off of a Super Bowl weekend a few weeks back, and it would be like if we had a football team that was just two-dimensional. If we just ran the ball. Yeah. We could be really good at running the ball, but that'd only get us so far. And so we've had to learn networking. So I'm just going to be very transparent and honest out there so everybody listening is not like, well, if I was like them and I grew up in the business. Well, we didn't grow up learning how to network.
No.
Really, you know what I mean? We would be around the people. We learned how to hard work, and then we would look up, and Taylor, you can talk about this, but we'd see other people within our business, not our business, but within our area, the industry, thank you, within our industry, that would make a hire, or they'd make this out. Where did they find them? We know their culture's not as good as ours.
Yes.
We know they don't train as well as we are. How did they get them? And it came through networking.
Yeah.
And you were really close to some people that were much better networkers than I was for sure. I was like, dang, I'm missing something there.
Yeah, the biggest deal there, and we laugh about this because of hard work, passed on, learned from our dad to Matt to Shelby to myself of just, hey, you got to work and you go through here. And we laugh about all the time. It's like we never go to lunch.
Yep.
We never go, and rarely will go to dinner or anything else. It's most of the time whenever we're at meetings or anything else. But we had to open up a little bit of, you have to be able to invite that in of a productive dinner or a productive lunch, that it's not, hey, we're just going to get lunch. But as we talked about with this other person that they hired, it was all about going in. They met them from a dinner over here that they were talking with this individual, and this guy ended up coming out. It was a huge hire, somebody they wouldn't have even ran across without knowing that. But you have to put yourself in those situations so that it helps build the opportunity, because you don't go into these opportunities thinking, hey, I'm going to get an instant result out of them right now. You're planting the seed.
That's it.
So it's a thought of, the idea whenever it comes across their desk or someone else's that you made that impact whenever you go and network with them. Like, wait, hold on. This might work great for the Lewis brothers. Let me call them real quick. And we receive a lot of those calls now. They're like, hey, I was just talking to so-and-so. I can't help them, but can you?
You bet.
That's the thing, if you can spread that culture. And so we talk about networking. And so if we can get out our philosophy and our game plan and the simple theory of know us, like us, and trust us.
Sure.
Right. We have that part handled. That's something we constantly train and work on internally. But where we found a lot of these good networking, where we constantly do find, and is a really cool thing, is we talked about giving back. Some episodes back, we talked about giving back to the community. And the number one thing we said was we don't just hand out checks.
Correct.
Right? We go and work these events.
Yep.
And that's where the networking naturally, because I'll speak for myself, that I'm naturally an introvert. In my business, that's not, so when it's game time, I'll talk to whoever. However, I'm happy to do that. But then I'm like, I don't want to talk to people. But you go to these events, and so then you're like, okay, I'm going to leave my feelings in the car.
Yep.
I'm going to go talk to people and work this event. And then you learn about the event, and you start rubbing shoulders with all these other people. And then you realize, okay, this person, good to know that person. Might need them as a good laborer. And then you're like, hey, this person, okay, they have some connections. And I'm not working them from their connections. I'm working them because they have good ideas.
Absolutely.
And they've seen some things. And they might have already been through something that we've yet to see, yet to come. And so then they understand you can give some value. They can give you some value back. That's where we've got a lot of good connections.
I would agree. Now, I'm going to say, and it might be because we're all family in here, but I'm, for sure an introvert. And some people would look at that and they're like, hey, Matt, you can get on stage and talk to hundreds of people. That's a different realm, but like for me to go out on the town to all these networking events, I have zero interest. But I will tell you what we did. Like if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. I did learn this from Dad early on when we were going to NADA about splitting up, and it just kind of migrated over to, if we go to a meeting or we go to a convention or we go to any kind of night out, you won't find the three of us together in a corner talking about what's going on. We always split up. We tell our team the same thing. If we're going to take some key players with us to an event, Shelby and I, or Taylor and I, don't need to be standing next to each other talking to somebody. We can talk about that later. We're there to connect with others, and we'll split up. Now, we might, intervene at some point.
We'll bring somebody over.
We'll bring somebody over. Like if I find somebody that's bringing a whole lot of value, then I bring them over and I'm introducing them to you guys.
Yep.
But if it's not of value, I'm moving on. And I'm going to tell you guys later too, like, hey, that person over there, don't necessarily invest a whole lot of time there. We have the same thing. Like if you go to one of our 20 group meetings with us, I tell my guys all the time, and each of y'all have heard me say this, and when y'all have gone, is I said, during the first part of the meeting, you're picking out who you're going to sit to during lunch or during the breakout sessions and who you're not going to.
Yeah.
Because you want to get in the right network that you can pour into, but you're getting the same reciprocated back to you as well. So there's kind of the first tip in networking. When you go somewhere, now when I do walk in the room or at one of the events, I find somebody I know.
Yes.
Because I'm going to use them as a springboard. Plus, I need something to give me some confidence, as I am an introvert, on how to get started and feel good about it. So if I find somebody that I can talk to that I know that knows these other people, that's the law of proximity. Like get in the proximity, then they'll start introducing.
So that's your icebreaker. That's tip number one. That's your icebreaker. Find someone, or if there's not someone, find some type of common ground.
Yes.
Whether it be something that they're wearing or an activity that's going on, something to have common ground with someone to get your foot in the door so you're not awkward like Wayne Newton, Cousin Eddie.
Sure.
Like they need to know that you're not there just like sucking all the stuff from them, you know? So one, make sure to find your segue into that. It should be part of that power of proximity.
And then share that with the rest of your team, too. So it's then like, no, you need to talk to them. We do the same thing running, too. It's like, hey, go run with them.
So that's the funny thing, and I was going to bring that up. So if there was you asked me, Shelby, what's your best way to network or what I would enjoy the most? I've done hundreds of interviews, right? Because it's what is needed for my job. And someone started doing this, and I think it was in Northwest Arkansas. They had a podcast or something called Business on Bikes.
It was Doug. It was Doug McMillan, the CEO of Walmart.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I loved that idea. And then there's another guy that I follow that says, hey, if somebody wants something from me, I invite them out for a hike.
Yep.
And so we've done that. We had a backyard ultra race. Now a good friend of ours that we run with.
Sure.
That this was years ago. And so Matt and I were running. It was just 4.2 miles. So it's 2.1 miles, turn around, come back, and you would do that every single hour. So we knew we were going to be there for hours.
Sure.
Hours upon hours.
Oh, yeah. Whole day.
For a whole day, right? And so we just kept running with different people. Hey, where are you from? What do you do? But while you're running, something about it just completely takes away the awkwardness because you have that common ground, the similarity. We're both out there suffering. And I've had really good conversations on bike rides. If I find a common ground of something I like to do, then I had another guy that's bought and sold a bunch of businesses. I said, hey, if you were ever free on a Wednesday wanting to go bike ride, I'd love to.
Sure.
And it's just like the greatest. So if you can have an activity that works for multiple people, it's a good segue as well.
And Taylor, I would say probably you're the strongest of the three of us on networking there, especially when it is like, hey, so-and-so's going to dinner, or they have this event to go to. You're jumping on and you're networking there, which is a stronger area that you have than definitely that I have. But that's open doors and opportunities.
Oh, it's been huge there, and it's probably more so anything of being able to get in there and share, no different than what we were talking about. Just kind of share the shortened vision of what our business is, how it's grown, how we're centered in the market. But it's just whenever you find that atmosphere, whether it's exercising, whether it's going to an event, whether it's going to dinner or anything else, that is your icebreaker that definitely brings down any of the walls. So that's definitely been big there that we've seen a whole lot of opportunities come from.
They do. And I want to talk about this part with networking just for a second, like what it equals. One of the things that Shelby brought up earlier that we talk about in our business are these three questions. So these three questions, every single either customer or potential employee will ask these three questions. They don't ask them out loud, but they'll ask these three questions before they either entrust you to go to work for you or they entrust you with their money to do business with you. And they ask these three questions. Do I know this person?
Yep.
Do I like this person? Like, could I be around them? I don't have to invite them over for Christmas, but can I be around them?
Yeah.
And then can I trust them? I know you, like you, and trust you. So when you start developing a network, they already answered those questions. So it's prime time. So when it's time to do business with them or hire them, they've already answered those three questions. Yeah. So then they turn into anybody in business out there that's had a repeat or referral. Those are your best type customers. They already know what to expect, so on and so forth. Networking allows you to take that and expand it 100x, 500x, 10,000x out there. So all these people know you, like you, and trust you. So then they'll do more business with you. So that's a big thing. And then when you start looking at networking, think about it a hub and spoke approach. All right. So you're the hub and you've got to get all these spokes off of there. And we're going to use an example from the Super Bowl that happened just a week or so ago and talk about what happened there with our network on social. Before we go into that, and Shelby has the data on it, but some people have questioned whether networking is still relevant. And I think that's farthest from the truth. And the reason they bring this up is because they say, well, all the social platforms and all of this and that, people won't get off their phone. So the art of networking is kind of died. And I'm like, hang on, think about that for a second. How many social influencers out there, they're building the network and awareness to do business with you?
It's just a different way.
It's just a different channel. That's in the newspaper. It's not the newspaper anymore of everybody influencing you. It's your phone.
Yeah.
And it's those connections. So you just got to figure it out. It's no different than us selling a car. We used to advertise in the newspaper, and then they'd call us. Well, now they look online, and then they send in a lead.
Yeah.
But when we were on the Super Bowl, we took advantage and put some commercials out there and then connected that with our social on a single day. And what that looked like when we branched out our spiderweb of networking.
Yeah, so we put it all together, tied it all back. And so we were looking at some metrics yesterday morning. So that would be Monday morning after the Super Bowl.
We
kind of started this whole process like midday Saturday evening where we
I'm priming it.
Hey, We're going to have a Super Bowl commercial, and here's what it looks like.
Okay.
So we launched that, and here's some metrics. So from Saturday through Monday morning, of the video alone, it had 51,000 total reach, 51,310, 47,000 views, and 55 clicks. Now, if you take the actual post of where we said, hey, we're going to have a commercial, and then had the commercial, and you combine Lewis Ford Chrysler and Springdale Ford's, Facebook pages, these numbers are pretty ridiculous for our small business.
Oh, for sure.
For single posts. Total reach was 177,110 was total reach, with 332,000 views, eyeballs.
So of that 332, just to give everybody context there, if you take our social platforms together, now it's business, which means it doesn't offer it up to everybody that follows you.
No.
But if you took that, we're somewhere right around 35,000 followers.
Yeah.
All right. Then what'd you think? 300,000?
Yeah, so that's a 10x.
That's a 10x.
That's a 10x. So 332,000 views, 718 interactions.
That's a 20x.
Something to do with a thumbs up, a heart, a share. 2,323 clicks in the call to action. Wow. Check this out. 1,099 page visits to our website.
1,900 page visits?
Yes. And 16 new followers. So if you're just stepping on the scale and saying, do I weigh more or do I weigh less?
Sure.
You're completely missing all the biometrics of underneath the hood of like, should I do this? And so the spin was on to create, which shout out to our internal marketing team, created the entire shot, created, edited, and posted in less than a week. To get it on TV, right?
Yeah.
We knew we'd have captive audience, but then we chummed the water.
So that was the hub right there. Was the TV
the spook is this is coming.
Yep.
Here's what it looks like. Then we hit an interaction of let's do a selfie with the commercial.
Yep.
And we always talk about that. This is important, is that you have to have internal buy-in before you can get the external to buy.
That's right.
So as another part of our hub there, I spoke off of it, was we said, let's do a contest to create excitement. And most importantly, all employees qualify.
Exactly.
And so then we send them a specialized email and a message to say, hey, here's what's coming. Here's what it looks like. Here's a preview. And we chum the water in 2 meetings to give them a preview and said, here's how you could take part. And yes, you do get to win.
That's right.
You're not excluded.
Correct.
And so then that ended up with 332,000 views.
So strong.
It is pretty stout there.
But in order to do that and use your entire networking, you got to go around and you got to fire off each engine. And everybody has these engines. You may be at the hub of it, but then you need your catalyst around there so it'll grab traction.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
So that's pretty important there. So that's good stuff. That's good stuff for sure.
And one last thing that I'll add before we jump in. Think of, power of proximity. People say, okay, I don't know how to be with those business owners to have it. I don't have money to donate.
Okay.
So there's a guy that I follow, definitely look up to, and said it's about the power of proximity. And we say you're an average of the 5 people that you hang out with. You know, whether it's your belief or your income or your daily habits or your business tactics or whatever it is. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. And the guy said, okay, so how do I get in the room with Warren Buffett?
Sure.
You know, how do I get to be in a conversation with Gary Vaynerchuk or Grant Cardone or any of those people? And this guy said, I don't care if I need to be the waiter or the receptionist at the restaurant.
You bet.
I just need an opportunity to be in that room. I don't need a invite to sit at the table.
You bet.
Just give me that opportunity. So if you're sitting there like, I don't have that network and I'm not donating $15,000 to this and I don't have an internal media crew, it's okay. You can still get in there. You can plow their parking lot.
Yep.
You can go clean their windows.
Yep.
You could deliver their mail. There's so many different aspects to get you within proximity, and then you have your one opportunity
You bet.
to not be Cousin Eddie, to say, Wayne Newton, I die for you. But to bring relevant value to that person. They say, maybe I should slow down and listen to this person.
You hit on such a great point there. Let me give you the segue to all the listeners on how to do that. It's called volunteering. how many events or organizations need volunteers? And again, I think it's really important. Ken Coleman talks about this a whole lot, who's on, part of Dave Ramsey's whole network there. He talks about the law of proximity. And he said, I don't care what the role is, just like you're talking about. I just care at what atmosphere it's in.
Yeah.
He said, so never think that you're too good to serve coffee there, or be a greeter, or help in the parking lot, or take out the trash, or help the media team. All you want to do is be in the proximity. And everybody needs volunteers all the time. So you might not have $15,000 for that Tony Robbins ticket to get there.
Yeah.
But you could volunteer for something. So then that gets you there. Hey, that's good stuff. Let's get into our fun fact, kind of break it up today. Hey, here's a different one that is not in the automotive industry. When was LinkedIn founded? When was LinkedIn founded? So here's your choices here. You got 4 of them today, A, B, C, and D.
I like that.
1999. That's a good year.
Okay.
2003. Okay, that's pretty good.
Yep.
2005. Well, you graduated in 05, didn't you?
Yeah.
Graduated in 05? Okay. And then 1993 right there. So 1993,
LinkedIn founded.
05, 03, or 99. I'm going to have to take a shot at the dark on that one, but we'll come back to that. All right, next up, let's talk about the right people to network with. The right people to network with. I think this one's important, and I've really gone through this one because let me just tell you that at the end of the day, we are in a very taxing mental business. Very taxing. Your brain uses up more glycogen than any other muscle in your body. So at the end of the day, you feel whipped.
Yep.
Like you've just been beat up. So the last thing I want to do is go to an event at the end of the day. I mean, I'm toast.
Yep.
I barely have enough energy left to talk to my family and this and that, much less to go put my happy face on for 3 or 4 hours on a 5-hour dinner that should last 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So I'm very particular about the networking. Now I am, before I couldn't be, the networking events that I go to. And I make sure a couple of things that I don't always go to the same type of crowd, meaning like what is it around, and the same people, because I need to spread that network. So when I look throughout the year, and especially stuff after work that I'm networking in, I pick the Teachers Association, because then I get to be in front of, talk to all teachers in Northwest Arkansas. That's a good network, a good piece to be a part of. Another big one is the Construction Developers Banquet. That gives me another segment. Both of those people drive vehicles. Another segment that I can network in. I can hit 300 or 400 people in one swoop that then have that multiplication factor. And then when we talk about Shop with a Cop, and especially in Fayetteville when they have their gala, that's another one. That's a totally different segment. So don't get stuck in the rut on always going to the same one. Now, we get to pick and choose on a lot of those, and I could go through more of them. But if you're just getting started, you're in business, you need to go see your local chamber. And I don't just say that because I sit on the board at the chamber, but they have a lot of resources, whether you're moving new to the area or you're just getting started, on professionals' nights out, on networking, on trying to connect. We just had a meeting about this yesterday, about networking. How can we provide value to businesses to teach them how to network? Because they know that there's so much value in networking. And again, if you hadn't listened to him, Ken Coleman talks a ton about this. Just get in the room. And how do you pick that? Don't just look within our industry. We don't always go network at automotive events.
No, I'd rather be something else.
I would too, because how many times am I going to sell Crane or McCarty Daniel or this or that vehicles? Now, would we have common stuff to talk about? Absolutely. But that's not why I'm there.
It's not really, I mean, like, you have X amount of energy. I think a good point based on that of picking out where to network, because you could really get lost, is what stage of life are you? Or what do you need from network? And are you trying to acquire customers? Are you trying to hire employees? Are you trying to get your name out? Or are you just looking for a job?
Yes.
So early on, you should be at every single event. One, you're young. You should be able to do that.
Absolutely.
You should only need 3.5 to 4 hours of sleep.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, you're 25 years old.
Yeah, do it while you can, right? And you should be at every single event, looking for that next job, rubbing the shoulders with the correct people. Then as stages of life change and you're into your job and you're creating your business, you're like, hey, I need to find like-minded people that are good at networking, you're good at marketing, you're good at something I'm not good at that I need in your business. So then that's your people that you're starting to go after. And those are the events that you're looking for. And then you just keep kind of changing where you're going, you know, and what's your main goal of networking. So you have to change that, and changes with what you need, what your current need is, and what your stage of life is.
Mm-hmm. It does, for sure. So, you know, and when you're doing that, again, don't look at what does it do for me right now. You're looking at the connections. You will get the opportunity to rub shoulders and be in the presence of somebody that could pour into you. I'm going to give tip number 2 right here, because we're number 1. We talked about tip number 2. When you get around those people, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
What's the relevance in how?
So the relevance to that is, if you take somebody that can pour into you and help you, and you're a motor mouth and a know-it-all, they're going to close down. If you ask, now you got to ask relevant questions to get the conversation going, but you're there to absorb, you're there to learn, and you can't do that if you're going like this right here. Something that blows my mind is when somebody just won't shut up, and like they ask me a question on like, hey, what do you think I should do here? But then they go on for 30 minutes explaining to me why they can't do it. I'm like, this person is closed off. There's no reason for me to pour into them, because they're not even open and ready to listen.
That's really good. And so the thing that we'll always focus on is you already know what you know.
Yep.
Right? You already know what you know. And we say you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. You should listen twice as much. So do keep that in mind. And you have to create or treat networking a little bit like speed dating.
You do.
You know,
You're cut it off. That it's not of value.
If it's not of value, the dinner will only last so long, or the event will only last so long. And so if you get cornered by a guy that's like, hey, why do you have so many Broncos parked out front? Right? You need to know this is not your fit. This is not what you came here for to get. And so you need to be pleasant. You need to be nice. And then I would just introduce them to someone else I know. That's the quickest. I wouldn't specifically do it to Taylor, but I've done it to both you guys.
Done it to y'all.
But I'm like, hey, I need you to meet Matt. He actually specializes in the Bronco parking. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, this is not my forever. This is not what I'm looking for. And go try the next person and try the next person until you find the fit. Then you better have the relevance, and you better ask questions. You better extract, and then you better get point of contact before you disconnect.
Absolutely.
Like, I love that. It's so fun. We had an event with the Mallet Foundation of Pros versus Joes.
Sure.
We've talked about that before, but Ryan Mallett's sister reached out to me and was like, hey, last minute, I need coaches. And I'm like, hey, I played football. I understand how it works. And she's like,
my brother doesn't have a very good record right now.
It's just got a losing record with this kid and whatever. She's like, Shelby, really don't need coaches. And I'm like, hey, Matt, we're going to do this. And he's like, man. And I was like, no, we're signed up. We're doing it. He's like, okay. And so it kind of looked like a sponsorship opportunity, but more or less they just need someone just to be amongst it. And it was our natural introvert was like, hey, because we like to have it together, right? Sure. If we were going to be the center of attention in some aspects. But then we got out there, and I've met some good friends and have some connections now from that event.
Sure.
But before I left, I was like, hey, man, I love where this conversation was going. We need to roll. And I've had some people like, hey, let's go to dinner. I'm like, yeah, cool. Let's go for a run and we'll talk, And then it's like, so then you quickly realize that. But then some other people that you'll see that just constantly support you, so you get to support them. And then your network gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And it just keeps growing like that.
To compound on that, you had the network for her to reach out to get that started. When we got there, Bo Mattingly was emceeing the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd worked with Bo plenty of times in the radio and had that network built. So when we got there, I saw him, knew him, so I went to introduce myself,
So once you and I weren't hanging out together, that was the comfortable thing to do.
Yep.
Is you and I know each other
there.
But nope. So we separated.
We're separated. So you're over there talking to some of the pros and this and that and all the rest of the networking. I find him and I'm not like, hey, Shelby, come with me. You're doing your deal over there. I go over here so we can spread our network. And so I get to talking to him, how things going and this and that. And then naturally throughout the game, since he's emceeing it, guess who he's plugging? Mm-hmm. He's plugging us because we're out there because he already knows us, likes us, and trusts us. He needs content to talk about, And then that starts to come together, so it becomes a whole lot more sticky. And then everybody in the stadium, they hear about us the whole time.
And once again, that's another one of those scenarios when you don't have to be the highest spender, the biggest presenter, or the presenting sponsor. You're just there, and then you get to love on them and know, like, and trust. Taylor, you've got a story, and currently we've got some high-end cars, and it's via networking of just being available.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And going into that story, I got a phone call from great friend in the industry, but he had said, hey, I can't be able to work on X, Y, or Z. Can you work on this? And I said, absolutely. I said, let me get my ducks in a row and make sure, because it ended up being something that we hadn't worked on before. And so I wanted to make sure everything was taken care of because he was referred to me.
Yeah.
He was going to be referred to me. So I wanted to make sure. So then I laughed about it because we do everything excellent. We don't do it halfway. The guy had brought the car there. He brought it on a trailer. It ended up being a new Ford GT. And he had said, I met him outside and Shelby was coming by and did a great job, got the car off, moved him along the way. Guy was really fired up. My friend called me back that said, hey, did you get it dropped off and everything else? I said, yeah. I said, did you and your brother meet the guy outside and not like have someone else do it? I said, no, you told me to take care of him. I want to take care of him. So I set aside a time out of my day to make sure I was available.
Sure.
But it compounded. He was like, dude, y'all are unreal. Thank you so much for being involved. Thank you so much for taking time to do that. Well, because I had done so great there, I got another phone call from someone else in the market that was like, I didn't know you service those. And it continues to compound and go on and go on and go on. So make sure you're doing the best whenever you're networking, because then it goes forward. 2 points of the things that y'all were going through that's so important. Network outside of your own area.
That's true.
Network outside of your own area, because 2 things are going to happen. You're going to learn things that really relate back into your business a lot of ways that you didn't know they could, but the way that you're going to learn about them is, hey, that's a different way to be able to manage people. That's a different way to be able to do the process. And it still works in this type of industry, not mine, but to see how those correlate and work together. And you're going to meet more people in different ways if you're more open-minded about going out in different areas than saying, hey, I'm really comfortable with this. I can go do this.
Yes.
Now, get outside of your comfort zone and go out there and meet those people.
Yes.
And listen. Listen like Matt said, and then go and talk to people that are relevant, like Shelby said, about going, that's going to really make the difference.
That's a big point there is you don't need to network within your circle anymore. You've already done that.
No.
Yeah.
And again, that's what we talk about. And your speed dating is a great analogy there. If you know you're going to have a situation that comes up that's going to pin you in, like a lunch or a dinner, usually there's either a breakout session before lunch or there's the, happy hour, whatever you want to call it, before dinner. You use that time to investigate who you want to sit by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you use that to strategically put yourself in the right position.
Because then you can pin yourself with someone who's a wealth of knowledge or a wealth of network.
Yeah. I mean, if you would think about if I didn't tell you this and I took you to an event, you would be like, are they embarrassed about me or why aren't they hanging out with me or talking to me? No, I'm just letting everybody spread and then we'll come back together.
You have to understand that. And so that is really good and really relevant, but I have to give you an example. Sure. So you say it. Now let me show you. So we've referenced a couple times, 20 group, that's where we're with other Ford dealers.
Sure.
Roughly 20 other Ford dealers from all across the nation. So we have the same philosophy. We all sell new Fords, service Fords. And so we come together and put all of our industry stuff of what's going on. So then we can see good, bad. And so then we can see, we know our main focus, we need to work on this, and we need to work on this. And so then we're like, you identify this, you identify this. Every night there'll be a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And who the blowhard is, and who's just going to be hanging out at the bar and doing this. But there will always be a couple people that'll levitate towards you, maybe because they want to extract your data, or maybe just because they like to talk.
Yes.
And it's like you've got to grease yourself up a little bit. You got to be ready to shapeshift. And I remember taking because I went for a long time, 10, 12 years before I ever took my wife. And then I was like, hey, like, don't sit down yet. We got to strategically swoop into where there's only 2 seats left.
Yeah. Right area.
In the right area to be able to be, because you could be in $1 million conversations.
Sure.
Or you could be 2 seats away and not be a part of
Nothing at all. Talking about dogs.
Talking about dogs and horses, Tennessee walking horses.
Yep.
You know, or
nothing's wrong with that, but that's not why we're there.
No.
yeah, no, like, let's have that side conversation at a time when I don't have opportunity to extract.
Exactly.
You know, so someone else who has experienced something, then you have to be very strategic in the speed dating that you don't get locked down with Karen and you're like, oh, shoot. Like, you could see them right over there. And you're just,
I need to be over
it's like, I need to be over there. I need to be talking to that person because you didn't. And I'm not a confrontation style person, and I'm not going to mean to anyone, but I'm going to be able to quickly slip away and be in the proper conversation. You don't know that until you take notes and you listen and you find that right person.
I think that's good. Hey, I got to tell one more networking story before we continue on here, because this one's really powerful.
Yep.
You know, you've heard us talk about construction and this and that. Why? Because it's a really big deal.
Yep.
It's a whole lot of money. Let me tell you about this is a real deal. Power of networking here in Northwest Arkansas. None of these people were related to the automotive business, nor did I know them 15 or 20 years ago when I started. So I've served on the chamber board, now on the executive board for like 8 years now, 8 or 9 years. So when we start talking about our construction project, there was first the acquiring of the land, selling of our current land, so we'd have cash to do it, so on and so forth. So the first up there to sell the land we were on 71 Business, that came from a networked person that I had met being on the chamber board and in chamber events. Okay, so that was a commercial real estate professional that helped us buy, you know, a lot of land on the interstate.
Very creatively, piece at a time, and then also sell very creatively the land we were on.
Yep.
So you're talking about millions and millions of dollars there on both sides that person got. I didn't start cold calling.
You did not cold call and ask anybody. I assure you, because remember, we bought the land on a handshake.
Yeah.
But then we didn't really overly have a conversation like, let's go to market with our current land.
Sure.
But you had networked well enough that person was like, hey, I just happened to see that this move might be happening. So because you had that network.
Then it connected all of it.
Yep.
And then it made sense. And it was the know you, like you, trust you was already there. So that's a big one right there.
Yeah.
All right. So then the next one up, when we had part of the land and we had to get the zoning done, we knew we needed a very specific person that understood the laws and the city was zoning. That came through the network of referrals. I called somebody else back up at the chamber that was on the board, and I knew they didn't know how to do it, but they may know somebody that did, and I trusted and I valued their opinion.
Yeah.
I said, who do I call about this? And he said, you call so-and-so. I called so-and-so. She's helped us with all of that, and she is a master of it.
Yeah.
That was the power of networking.
Yeah.
Not directly to the person I knew, but they gave me access to somebody else.
Yeah, because it could have happened without, right? But it would have cost a ton of money, and most importantly, a ton of time.
Yeah.
They know when, where, and how, who to talk to, how to talk to them, the best way to navigate through the process, because the process was long and drawn out anyways. But that was already knowing the right channels. It could have been a nightmare.
So that was big. The next one is, hey, we needed the financing and the money for this behemoth of a project.
Yeah.
Remember, it's 150,000 square feet, 26 acres. That's a big project.
Yeah.
We needed the bank to do that with. We wanted it to be somebody locally that would evenly flow because we didn't have all the plans done yet.
Yep.
Just
No, we stayed on.
here's an alert.
Artifact for you. That's still this on.
So I needed them to trust in us based upon our history. Here's what we're doing. We got 50% of the plans done.
Yeah.
I need a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
I need you to help me. Well, they had known me from working on listening to me in the chamber through the whole thing, had sat on the board with me.
Yeah.
So they could vouch for you.
They could vouch for me when they had to go to their super committee to get it done. Plus, it enabled a relationship, so that was smooth selling. Now we have continued relationships going on there. That was a network. Then the construction team that we put together. And when I talk about construction team, I'm not just talking about Navajo's. I'm talking about the civil and the architect and all that stuff. The civil, that guy sat on the board with me.
Yep.
Had McClellan there. The construction companies, remember when I told you earlier about picking where I network at, that construction and developers banquet I go to, that's a whole nother network. I know the ins and outs of all those people. So when you start thinking about that whole project from ding to dong, what's the power of that network?
Yeah.
Not for only for us, but for them.
Yeah.
You know, that's big when you start thinking. And none of those are automotive related. But now all those people, where they buy their next vehicles.
That's what I was going to say. Okay, all right, cool, Matt. Like, we're not building anything. So we have, I think, Arkansas' largest construction company.
We do.
Navajo. And that was not specifically why we picked them, but you know, there was some depth in knowing that. But civil engineer, we've sold them a vehicle. Multiple Navajo's vehicle, we've sold vehicles. When we did grand opening, we personally called, and emailed everyone that we had been in contact with, said, come down. You're a big part of this. And then they get to be part of our family. And you think like, okay, that's really simple. So many of them said, we've built hundreds, if not thousands. We've done tons of plans. The one place said, hey, we've done 300 sets of plans, and we've never seen a grand opening like this. And we've never seen invites like this. So once you get that network, you have to do something with it.
And that's what happened when we did there. As we went, we said, boom, spread it out. Everybody get the phone out. And then just that personal invite of a text got us over 1,000 people.
Because they know us, like us, and trust us. They were like, this is crazy. And so we're able to do it right. And then they're like, man, anything automotive that we need or whatever your business is, these are your people. So we use them, page them first, and then we ask for a return on the other side. And why would they not?
You must make deposits before you ask for a withdrawal. In anything in life. So no different than if you're trying to network and get something out of somebody. When the opportunity comes and they ask you a question and you have expertise in that area, be willing to pour into them first.
Without a return.
Then the return will happen. Then it'll happen.
Do you know what happens too whenever you share such your pride of a whole project that goes in there that you put and pour so much into? We had a guy the other day that came and bought a truck from us from APAC. Well, if you don't know what APAC does, anything basically you drive on. Anything. So you know what he said to me? He was like, hey, he's like, are you one of the Lewis brothers? I said, yes, sir. I said, how can I help you? He's like, well, I'm here buying a truck. He said, I paved a lot here for y'all. I said, oh, man, you did? He said, yeah. He said, I am so proud of this project. I see all the things that y'all do. And whenever I drive by, he's like, hey, I worked on that project over there.
That pride.
So many of our vendors are like, hey, I'm part of this with you. We were paying them, and now they're a spokesperson out there, a billboard for us, coming back and buying our product because we shared that much enthusiasm. We were so proud of it. We thought it out so much that they were back and like,
that's so
right.
That's so right. Because during the heat, July of not last year, but the year before. So what was it, like 250 construction workers active?
On the ground, over 200. It was over 100 degrees. Now, these aren't the people that own the construction company.
The workers.
They're the workers. The workers do. They still drive cars.
And at the end of the day, so we do this for our employees, and it's something grand. But so we've got the local ice cream trucks and the concrete trucks. And so we called them and said, hey, I need you to meet me over at this address. Make sure you got a full truck. And so then we told Sean, the superintendent time, said to round up all the workers. And so then we turned the siren on, the ice cream truck, and we were in the back of the truck rounding people up. And we bought ice cream for the entire job.
The entire job.
Basic and simple, but they were blown away. And so when that line was there, we got to talk to those people. It was like, hey, what are you doing here? What, hey, I'm the glass, hey, I'm the asphalt, hey, I'm the steel, hey, I'm the dirt, hey, I'm the electrical. And I've heard 100 stories since then of like, man, why would you do that? That's so expensive. It was not that expensive. But no one had ever cared for them at a ground level. And it, like during our Super Bowl commercial, we kept getting texts and Facebook messages like, that's the place I built.
From the vendors, I guarantee
they were jacked up. They were like, those are the guys that take care of us. And so this network, you're like, how does it grow to be so big? You care every single day. And when you see somebody, you don't just shrug and run the other way. So,
and you do it without expecting anything in return immediately.
That is it's a delayed gratification. You do it because it's like our dad has always taught us. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
That's right.
And never expect a return. Don't keep records of it. Like, oh, okay, I did this for Matt. He owes me one. There's no such thing. The law of proximity and doing right things, it will come back to you tenfold if you do it correctly and care and have the right intention.
If you can understand that point right there, most people are in the get rich quick or get successful quick.
Head and see.
We're planting trees. And trees take a while of water and fertilizing and taking care of. But once they take off, they don't have to have an irrigation system. And they got roots forever. Everybody else is doing these flowers that you have to pull out of the ground, and then you got to replace every single year.
Building a business to sell it, right?
I know what I mean.
And then they're like, hey, where did the Lewises go? Like that. Like, didn't they create that? Like, they got me in to be vendors of this, and then they nobody found them. They sold the company. Like, not going to happen, right? Building the long term. This is we're looking at the long curve here, right? We're not looking at the ups and downs.
Because the multiplication's so big, and that's how you do it.
It is. It is. You have to stay in there. Hey, getting back into our question there, when was LinkedIn founded? So you had 4 options there: 1999, 2003, 2005, or 1993.
Wow.
I kind of thought it would have been before then.
Yeah.
But
I would have, but I have the same, and I can see the answer here, so I won't say it out loud yet. But I can tell you during that, I was in my second year of college at that point in time.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember anybody talking about it then.
Oh, no.
I'm not dating myself, or I was going to, is that, the phone just finally came out where you could take a picture with it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have thought that LinkedIn would have been around then.
The funny thing is, it's probably about the right time because I remember being in computer class in high school is when Facebook started.
Okay.
And LinkedIn is not Facebook by any means, but it was a social atmosphere digitally. So what's the answer?
Is 2003.
2003.
2003 there. So that
Pretty solid.
That is really good.
starting to kick off there.
Old.
Hey, we have absolutely crushed about networking and going through everything. The biggest thing, and this was taught early on that I love about this, but turn network into opportunities and business growth. This first segment of it, you've always taught, and you kind of learn more of as you grow and you get older. But how past clients, vendors, and even competitors can open doors and why it's so important. We rarely cut off and fire a customer, an employee, a competitor, a vendor, because we don't burn bridges. We want to keep that open. That's always been taught to us. Why is that so important about vendors or any of those?
Now, I'm going to flip the script a little bit there and then dive into
Yeah.
it. I've made the mistake on closing doors before.
Yep.
Early on in my career, I was in my 20s, full of piss and vinegar, rocking and rolling, and I got really mad at a company. And I can remember like it was yesterday, and I threw the hammer down, and I closed the door.
Yeah.
And it was one of the worst business decisions I ever made. Now, are we still successful? Yes. But looking back in a more mature state now, I was like, why did I ever close that door? I was mad at that individual, but then what did that cost me within their network? Because people are either lifting you up and talking about you positively or talking about you negatively. And I could have just rolled on.
Yeah, so that's instead of closing the door, burn the bridges, screw you, I'll never do business with you again, right? It is learning to be okay that we can separate if it's not the proper fit, but separate properly. Learning to say no properly. Of saying, okay, it's not my segue in life right now to go to every dinner event and to go to every who's who.
You bet.
And Jesse Itzler talked about early on, you need to be at every single event, but now in stage of life, you need to be able to say no more to be able to do what's important to you, but be able to say no properly. And so he talks about a really cool thing of if he has some, a business or investor or something that invites him for an event, but he has something else scheduled on his calendar that's a non-negotiable, he can say no properly, that he'll call the restaurant and on a small scale buy dessert. On a larger, grander scale, he'd pay for the dinner. And so he said, I figured out how to be the center of the conversation without ever even being there.
That's good.
So he'd call the restaurant and say, hey, there's a party there of 5 people. It should be under this name. Hey, I want to make sure that you bring out some drinks for these guys and take care of the dinner and tell them it's on me. And so then he wasn't even there, but he's still able to be talked about the entire time. So There's no need to burn bridges.
Correct.
With previous employees, with vendors, with customers. We've had to fire customers before, but you can do it cordially, properly. Just think, if you were on the other side, how would you want to be handled?
I think when you look at that and you start thinking about this exact question about the doors that can be open, maybe not tomorrow, but down the road, once it finally clicks in your mind, and if you're listening out there, I'm telling you, maybe you got this, but probably not. We've learned from really hard knocks and then from very mature and wise people teaching us along the way. Just like I told you, I made that mistake, is that there's always an opportunity down the road. And I had a guy talk about this early on in my career. His name's Paul Cummings. And he had this slogan. He said, we can agree to disagree without anybody getting upset.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like we can talk about this. We can have a difference in opinions, and we don't have to be upset with each other.
Yeah.
I respect your opinion. You respect my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it, and then we're going to move on. This happens, an easy example here happens when somebody we know buys a vehicle from somebody else.
Yep.
Okay? There is a small window of opportunity. They're embarrassed because they would want to buy from us, but maybe we didn't have the right color.
Somewhere we dropped the ball.
Somewhere we dropped the ball, or we didn't have the right model, or whatever it is. We can either just not ever say anything, okay, and then they don't ever come back in because they don't want to face that. That's confrontational.
Right.
Or the next time we see them or call them or text them or comment on their Facebook page or whatever else, we can congratulate them on that purchase and offer for them to come by on a free car wash Friday or for their first oil change.
Yep.
So we take an opportunity, and some of you business people out there are going, you did what? Have you paid for their oil change when they didn't buy from you? I then took that customer, and then every person they come in contact with will send people to us.
We teach and preach that, and if I could do that once, I'd do it a million times over.
Big.
We have all these young, aspiring salespeople, and they'll close doors real fast if you're not patient. And like, hey, just got off the phone with Mrs. Smith. You said she was a good friend. She bought somewhere else.
Done.
I'm done. I blocked him on Facebook. I'm like, whoa. Look, because here's what I know. No one else is winning at customer service like we are, right? I promise you, like you are. If you're listening to this, if you're 25 episodes deep, you want to win more than anyone else. And you're going to grind harder and have a better experience. So I say you call Mrs. Smith back. Or if you find out and you hadn't already burned that bridge, you call Mrs. Smith and say, hey, when you were there, did they sign you up for their car wash club? And the answer is
No.
No, we know that, right? And when you were there, did they take your red carpet photo? And we know the answer is
No.
no, every single time. Right? So we know that. We say, hey, Mrs. Smith, I love to hear that you found the perfect vehicle.
Sure.
Just like you sold it to her. What I'd like to do is invite you for our VIP process. Because the customer's thinking, oh, crap, the Ford store's calling me. I didn't buy from them. Whether they connection to us or not. What do I do? So you might shoot them a text and said, hey, got a quick question. Give me a call. Promise not trying to sell you anything. Hey, Mrs. Smith, Shelby Lewis Ford. Hey, I just got word you did find your Tahoe. Tell me something real quick about it. Did it have that sunroof? Did it have the leather? Like, yep, got it, perfect. Hey, did they get your red carpet photo when you bought it? Like, what? The red carpet photo, that's part of our process. I'd love to invite you in. So we have done that, right? Many times.
Yes.
We even gone as far as that they're like, man, I wish I could buy it from you. It's like, well, can I get you in the VIP car wash clubs? Like, what does that mean? It means whenever you want, come by, get a complimentary car wash. Can I swap out your sticker on the back?
Oh, yeah.
We've swapped out from other dealerships with their permission
Yeah.
to a Lewis sticker on the back. Taking the red carpet photo, posted it on Facebook and said, I'd like to take a moment and say congratulations to Mrs. Smith and their 2023
Yes.
F-150, Tahoe, whatever it is. She took full advantage of what's going on currently. She signed up for the VIP Car Wash Club, got the red carpet photo, and then you tagged her. And the other salesman, the other place, like, I made $300. I sold a car. Mrs. Smith ain't never going anywhere else. They didn't post on Facebook. They didn't make her feel special.
That's right.
They didn't follow. So you can take a bad apple, cut it up, and make the best world-renowned applesauce that you've ever seen. But most people trip and fall over that and close that door and say, heck with you. And that makes your network one spoke less. So you look and your wheel will fall apart because you're just despoking.
The chimpanzee part of the mind will always overrule the logical part of the mind. Not to get deep in science because I'm not a doctor, but how most people react, though, is the front part of their mind, that fight or flight.
Yep.
You know, so they're like, screw them. Oh, I'm not ever talking to them again. If you will allow your mind to just pause emotionally and think through it, logical will kick in and you go, how do I now turn this into an opportunity for the future? And one of your next points here, Taylor, I'm going to jump to it, is the only way you know how to do that is you find the right mentors and the right people that are wise enough to learn from.
Yes.
The wisdom.
And they might be around you. They might be in a book. They might be on a YouTube. They might be on a podcast like you're listening to right now. We didn't all get born and have all this. We've learned from a whole lot of people.
Like 10, 15, 20 years ago, you ask us all these questions and things, we would give you a completely different
We're like,
answer.
just go to work and work hard, and I'm there. Let's go.
Because we've had conversations about employees that have left us, and I'm like, Matt, if it's the right fit for a different position, we need to have, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later. And early on, you'd be like, they are not working here again. That was ridiculous. They shouldn't have done that. They burned me. And we've all been that same way. I'm not picking on you.
No.
And I'm like, hey, it wasn't, the shoe did not fit in the current scenario.
Or something was different in their life.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, maybe they had family in Idaho and they thought they had to move back, whatever.
Whatever it may be.
You know what I mean? Or it was a time deal and they're like, I'm willing to take 50% of the pay. Well, then the rest of the family didn't really like that anymore. So then they had buy-in from the family and they're ready to come back around.
You do make a good point about collecting content. Now, you lose half the networking potential or maybe a majority of the networking potential if you read it in the book or if you saw it on YouTube or something. But the way that you can do that is if you have a small network or if you have some followers on Facebook, share what you learned.
Yes.
And so then you get to bring relevance. So like, hey, check this out. This is my takeaway from this YouTube. This is my takeaway from this conference.
Yes.
And then you get some comments. And then you're building your social network becomes your actual network. So even if you don't have the time and can't go volunteer, you can give me all the cans in the world and I'll still show you how to. That you can. Don't just keep it to yourself, share, and then you get to the lead.
I think that's very important, and I'm going to give you an example here that I use all the time, is that when I get the opportunity to pour into somebody else, because I know I got to make deposits for it and take a withdrawal, I've never written a book, nor am I a good writer at all, but I have in my arsenal the amount of books that I've read, which is not a ton, but one of those that's at the top, one of my favorites, is Atomic Habits. So I'll get to talking to other business owners or leaders, and I'll offer that up as a suggestion. I didn't even write it. I have nothing to do with that, but I'm giving them a resource. Let me tell you this book that helped me out.
Yeah.
You might like this. What have you been listening to? So I'm giving that up. I'm getting something into return. So it doesn't have to be something you created.
Yeah, that's really good.
That definitely helps there.
Yeah. I'm going over, I laugh and sitting here thinking of, and this is, Shelby was talking about how you grow with age and anything else. And Matt had talked about your mentor and accountability partner is so huge. So take this as a note and know it of you have to be able to sound and bounce things off of them. I love whenever I talk to, and I can think back through the years, and I'm a pretty even-keeled, tempered, very just calm, but I always got to the point of whenever I was done, I was done.
Sure.
You were going. But I laugh of going anything else because I can sit and talk to Matt or Shelby that are my accountability partners that I bounce everything off of, brothers, everything else. But there are two different ways that I can be talking about an employee, and I'll say one thing and they'll kind of look at me like, yep, that didn't make sense. I'm going to go ahead and back up there. And Matt can either smile at me and Shelby will look at me. I'm like, yep, Taylor, we need to back up and we need to go ahead and go back through that. That didn't make sense. So once you're at that level with your accountability partner, it's not even a whole lot of words that are said. It's words that are unsaid of her talking about nonverbal communication.
Sure.
And you only get to that level if you have someone that you're willing to receive that input from.
Yes.
That they're able to teach you and help you grow because they grew from there. you learn something else that maybe they didn't know, and you put those two together, and then you're constantly growing from both sides.
You know, I think a tip that I need everybody to hopefully understand that listening, because depending upon where you are, you may already have those circle of influence and those opportunities around you if you're mature in your business and you just need to inject yourself into it, or you may be just coming out of college. Mm-hmm. If you're early on in your career, you go to everything.
Yep.
Now, when I mean that, you're not going to everything, meaning the bar every night to all your college friends. Relevant everything's until you start figuring out. Like it's an overload at first. Then you pick and choose.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was in my 20s, I didn't pick and choose. Now, because that's been built, I can pick and choose based upon what area that we need help and growth in.
Yeah. Huge there. Hey, it's time to get into the frequently asked questions part of the day there. Matt, both questions, different thing here, but tell us about networking impact on your leadership.
It has grown exponentially the farther I've gotten in my career.
Yes.
Like I talked about early on, you know, at first I just started off with my head down, just grinding day in and day out. That only got me so far. And then as I talked about with the construction project or with leading the team or with leading other leaders, that impact about getting around the correct people in the right network. Some of those are here in Northwest Arkansas, and some of those people have never met me in their life, and they wouldn't know who I was. But by just listening to them and then growing, then to be able to have access to somebody else within that network, it's been big. Mm-hmm. It's opened my eyes on how to lead and how to coach, you know, how to grow our business, how to do the construction, how to handle the finances correctly. So and you didn't hear me say how to sell a car.
No.
You know, it's all these other areas that encompass how to hire, how to make better hires, the upgrades we've done because we've networked and we've been in the proximity of the right people.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
Mm-hmm. And Shelby, on the flip side there, what would you say the hardest part about networking is for you?
You probably should already know this, but I think you know. But it was just the physical idea of actually getting outside of my comfort zone. But when I peeled away and I was like outwardly honest with myself, like, Shelby, you're happily married, have a family, you have the friends that you have a good job. So you're not there looking for a wife, kids, a family, or a job, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you're nice to people and polite, like, nothing is overly going to harm you, right? And so once I got outside that, was like, okay, I need to be intentional about this. There's no point in going to a networking event or a social event and being a fly on the wall.
That's right.
It is so pointless.
Yeah.
Just sitting at your table, scrolling your phone.
Yeah.
That is so pointless. Like, there's so much. I didn't want to dress up. You know, I didn't really want to go to the event. So then when you're there, you better be there.
That's right.
Right? And so then, like we talked about, find a way to have that common ground. Find someone you know. Because once my wheels are turning of being plugged in, like once I start, it's just the action of doing, then I'm good to go.
Yep.
Then my wife or you guys might be like, all right, Shelby, we got to go. Because I'm full story time. I'm full into this. I'm extracting. I'm like, hey, I've sent out my blank card to 7 different people that are all relevant. I've got contact information back, and you're not going to believe this idea that I got in this and this connection. So the hardest part about me is committing to, okay, this is an event that I need to do, and getting in that action of like that. All right, I'm going to talk to people. And sometimes I'm negative talk. I just left a marriage conference, and so I was there, and there's 500 other people, and everyone wants to ask me, like, hey, what's that thing out front? And hey, the out car sales. And I'm just like, I've been doing this my whole life. Like, leave me alone. And I like, this was time away from my kids with my wife. But then I'm just like, so then I found people I knew and just kind of like comfort zone here. I have to, in my mind, and that was not the time, unless there was an opportunity I saw, right? Sure. There's some people that I high-fived and here and there. But you have to make that cognitive decision to turn on. To turn on and be present. Okay, and if you're going to do it, it's just like my physical activity we talked about. I'm 100% on or 100% off. So then when I decide to turn it on, I'm jigging the circus midget. So my hardest part is
just getting going.
Getting go.
Get going and get in the middle of it. We got off deep in it today. That's good one. It's part of a good one there. Hey, always find us there for any of our freshest inventory at lewissuperstore.com and all of the relevant information, constantly growing, constantly evolving in the podcast world, but at crossroadconversationspodcast.com.
I like it.
We'll see you soon.
Hey, thanks for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to give it a like, share it with your friends and family, visit our website, and send us some questions. We want to know what you'd like to hear, who you'd like to hear from, and what you want to see, or maybe even some questions for us to answer about either the automotive industry or just business in general.